that we will want kindness then more than at any other time. David says you knew his mother. Sometime won't you tell me all about her? You must very soon. The Harvester adored her, and Doctor Carey says she was the noblest woman he ever knew. It's a big contract to take her place. Maybe if you could tell me all you can remember, I could profit by much of it." Granny Moreland watched the girl keenly. "She wa'n't no ordinary woman, that's sure," she commented. "But she didn't make no common man out of her son, either. I've always contended she took the job too serious and wore herself out at it, but she certainly done the job up prime. If she's above cloud leaning over the ramparts looking down, though it gets me as to what foundation they use or where they get the stuff to build the ramparts. But if they is ramparts and she's peeking over them, she must take a lot of solid satisfaction in seeing that David is not only the man she fought and died to make him, but he's give her quite a margin to spread herself on. She 'lowed to make him a big man, but you got to know him close and plenty 'fore it strikes you just what his size is. I've watched him pretty sharp and tried to help what I could since Marthy went, and I'm frank to say I'd rather see David happy than be happy myself. I've had my fling. The rest of the way I'm willin' to take what comes with the best grace I can muster, and wear a smilin' face to betoken the joy I have had. But it cuts me sore to see the young sufferin'." "Do you think David is unhappy?" asked the Girl eagerly. "I don't see how he could be!" cried the old lady. "Of course he ain't. 'Pears as if he's got everythin' to make him the proudest, best satisfied of men. I'll own I was mighty anxious to see you. I know the kind of woman it would take to make David miserable, and it seems sometimes as if men, that is, good men, are plumb stone blind when it comes to pickin' a woman. They jest hitch up with everlastin' misery easy as dew rollin' off a cabbage leaf. It's such a blessed sight to see you, and hear your voice, and know you're the woman anybody can see you be. Why, I'm so happy when I set here and contemplate you, I want to cackle like a pullet announcin' her first egg. Ain't this porch the purtiest place?" "Come see everything," invited the Girl, rising. Granny Moreland followed with alacrity. "Bare floors!" she cried. "Wouldn't that best you? I saw they was finished capital when I was over, but I 'lowed they'd be covered afore you come. Don't you like nice flowery bristles carpets, honey?" "No, I don't," said the Girl. "You see, when rugs are dusty they can be rolled, carried outside, and cleaned. The walls can be wiped, the floors polished, and that way a house is always fresh. I can keep this shining, germ-proof, and truly clean with half the work and none of the danger of heavy carpets and curtains." "I don't doubt but them is true words," said Granny Moreland earnestly. "Work must be easier and sooner done than it was in my day, or people just couldn't have houses the size of this, or the time to gad that women have now. From the looks of the streets of Onabasha, you wouldn't think a woman had had a baby to tend, a dinner pot a bilin', or a bakin' of bread since the flood. And the country is just as bad as the city. We're a apin' them to beat the monkeys at a show. I hardly got a neighbour that ain't got figured Brussels carpet, a furnace, a windmill, a piany, and her own horse and buggy. Several's got autermobiles, and the young folks are visitin' around, a ridin' the trolleys, goin' to college, and copyin' city ways. Amos Peters, next to us, goes bareheaded in the hayfield and wears gloves to pitch and plow in. I tell him he reminds me of these city women that only wears the lower half of a waist and no sleeves and a yard of fine goods mopping the floors. Well, if that don't beat the nation! Ain't them Marthy's old blue dishes?" "Let me show you." The Girl opened the little cupboard and exhibited the willow ware. The eyes of the old woman began to sparkle. "Foundation or no foundation, I do hope them ramparts is a go," she cried. "If Marthy Langston is squintin' over them, and she sees her old chiny put in a fine cupboard, and her little shawl round as purty a girl as ever stepped, and knows her boy is gettin' what he deserves, good Lord, she'll be like to ask the Almighty and set on the throne herself. 'Bout everything in life was a disappointment to her, 'cept David. Now if she could see this, won't I rub it into the neighbours and my boys' wives?" "I don't understand," said the bewildered girl. "Course you don't, honey," explained the visitor. "It's like this. I don't know anybody, man or woman, in these parts that ain't rampagin' for change. They ain't one of them that would live in a log cabin, though they's not a house in 20 miles of here that fits its surroundin's and looks so home-like as this. They run up big, fancy brick and frame things, all turns and gables and gay as frosted picnic pie, and work and slave to get these very carpets you say ain't healthy, and the chairs you say you wouldn't give house room, and they use their grandmother's chiny for bacon, scraps, and grease dishes, and hide it if they's visitors. All of them strainin' after something they can't afford, and that ain't healthy when they get it, because somebody else is doin' the same thing. Mary Peters says she is afeared of her life in their new steam wagon, and she says Andy gets so narvous runnin' it he just keeps on a jerkin' and drivin' all night, and she thinks he'll soon go to smash himself if the machine doesn't beat him. But they are keepin' it up because Grayston's is, and so it goes all over the country. Now I call it slap right in the face to have a Chicagy woman come to the country to live, and enjoy a log cabin, bare floors, and her man's grandmother's dishes. If there ain't Marthy's old blue coverlid all so carefully spread on a splinter new sofy. Landy, I can't wait to get to my son John's. He's got a woman that would take 2 coppers off the collection plate while she was pertendin' to put one on, if she could, and then spend them for a brass pin or a string of glass beads. Won't her eyes bung when I tell her about this? She wanted my Peter Hartman cover for her ironin' board. Show me the rest." "This is the dining room," said the girl, leading the way. Granny Moreland stepped in and sent her keen eyes ranging over the floor, walls, and furnishings. She sank on a chair and said with a chuckle, "Now you go on and tell me all about it, honey. Just what things are, and why you fixed them, and how they are used." The girl did her best, and the old woman nodded in delighted approval. "It's the purtiest thing I ever saw," she announced. "A minute ago I'd 'a' said them blue walls back there just like October skies in Indian summer, and the brown rugs like leaves in the woods couldn't be beat. But this green and yaller is prettier yet. That blue room will keep the best lookin' part of fall on all winter, and with a roarin' wood fire it'll be capital and no mistake. But this here is spring, just spring eternal, and that's best of all. Looks like it was about time the leaves was bustin' and things pushin' up. It wouldn't surprise me a mite to see a flock of swallers come sailin' right through these winders. And here's a place big enough to lay down and rest a spell, right handy to the kitchen, where a body gets tiredest without runnin' a half mile to find a bed. And in the mornin' you can look down to the still waters, and in the afternoon, when the sun gets around here, you can pull that blind and lift your eyes to the hills, like David of the Bible says. My, didn't he say the prettiest things! I never read nothin' could touch him." "Have you seen the Psalms arranged in verse as we would write it now?" "You don't mean to tell me David's been put into real poetry?" "Yes. Some Bibles have all the poetical books in our forms of verse." "Well, sometimes I get kind o' knocked out. As a rule, I hold to old ways. I think they're the healthiest and the most favorable to the soul. But they's some changes come along that's got such hard common sense to ricommend them that I wonder the past generations didn't see sooner. Now take this. An hour ago I'd told you I'd read my father's Bible to the end of my days, But if they's